My wife thought she was smarter than me. She covered every track, but she forgot one thing. I'm a forensic accountant. Every hotel, every gift, every lie had a paper trail. I followed it all the way to court. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday night in October. I was hunched over my desk in our home office, surrounded by client files and the familiar glow of spreadsheets. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I barely noticed. Numbers don't lie, unlike people. They tell stories in their own precise language, and I've spent 15 years learning to speak it fluently. Isla was on the phone in the kitchen, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she thought I wasn't listening. Low, intimate, careful. The kind of voice you use when you're planning something you shouldn't be. "You know I can't wait," she whispered. "He never suspects a thing. I'll wear the black set." I stopped typing. The black set. The lingerie I'd never seen despite sharing a bedroom for 12 years. Professional confidence, they call it in my line of work. The ability to spot anomalies that others miss. Isla Corvin, she'd kept her maiden name for business. Deleted browser history with ritual precision. Her burner phone powered down every night at exactly 11. Cash withdrawals stayed beneath reporting thresholds. She married a forensic accountant and believed she could outmaneuver him. She was wrong. It begins with $47, a restaurant charge in Portland when Isla claimed she was in Seattle for a design conference. Most husbands would dismiss it as a bank error. I noted it the way I note everything, silently, completely. The spreadsheet opened that night. It would grow to 2,400 rows before this was over. "Wes?" Isla appeared in the doorway, phone tucked behind her back. "You're up late." "Client deadline," I said, minimizing the window. "How was your conference call?" "Boring. Just vendor negotiations." She smiled, the same practiced expression she used with difficult clients. "I'm heading to bed." I watched her climb the stairs, noting the spring in her step that hadn't been there when she talked to me in months. When her bedroom door closed, we'd been sleeping separately since her insomnia started. I opened a new file. Project name, Suspicious Spouse. The next morning, I started digging. Corporate rate codes don't lie. They lead to loyalty accounts people forget they've linked to joint email addresses. Isla's Marriott Rewards account showed 14 months of stays, always suites, always Portland, always the same hotel. The guest name on incidental charges made my hands shake. Damon Vossel. I knew that name. Damon was Isla's company's outside counsel, a smooth-talking attorney who specialized in high-end real estate law. He'd been to our house for dinner parties, complimented my barbecue, asked about my work with the kind of polite disinterest that suggested he found numbers beneath his intellectual pay grade. Room service for two, itemized down to the champagne vintage. Dom Perignon, $300 per bottle, chocolate-covered strawberries, late checkout fees that suggested they weren't rushing to morning meetings. My son Eli wandered into the kitchen as I scrolled through the charges on my laptop. "Dad, can you drive me to practice today? Mom left early for another client meeting." Another client meeting, at 7 in the morning, on a Saturday. "Sure, buddy." I closed the laptop. "Hey, has your mom seemed different lately?" Eli shrugged, the universal teenage response to parental inquiry. "She's always texting that lawyer guy. Damon something. Says it's work stuff." Work stuff, right. I drove Eli to soccer practice and spent the hour in my car, cross-referencing Isla's calendar with the hotel charges. Every client dinner matched a Portland hotel stay. Every overnight design consultation aligned with Damon's travel schedule, which I found through his law firm's public court filings. The pattern was beautiful in its consistency, and damning in its clarity. When I picked up Eli, our neighbor Donna was waiting by her car. Donna Chen... No, I needed to avoid that name. Donna Walsh knew everyone's business and shared it with the enthusiasm of a town crier. "Wes, honey," she called out, her voice dripping with false concern. I hope everything's okay with you and Isla. I've noticed she's been working such late nights lately. She's got more energy than most, doesn't she? The subtext was clear. Donna had seen something. Or someone. Design business keeps her busy, I said, loading Eli's gear into the trunk. Oh, I'm sure it does. Donna's smile could have cut glass. That handsome lawyer who picks her up sometimes, he must be quite the client to warrant so much personal attention. My hands tightened on the car keys. Thanks for looking out for us, Donna. That night, I followed Isla. She claimed she was meeting a client for dinner at a restaurant downtown. Instead, she drove straight to the Aurora Motel, a seedy place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions about fake names on credit cards. Damon's silver BMW was already in the parking lot. I parked across the street and watched them embrace in front of room 237. His hands roamed her body with the familiarity of long practice. She laughed at something he whispered, the genuine laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in over a year. I snapped photos through my telephoto lens, a tool I'd acquired for surveillance work on financial fraud cases. The camera captured everything, their faces, the room number, the timestamp that proved this wasn't a business meeting. I was so focused on documentation that I almost missed Damon glancing toward my car. Our eyes met for a split second across the parking lot. He said something to Isla, who turned to look. I started the engine and pulled away, heart hammering against my ribs. But I'd gotten what I needed: evidence, proof, the beginning of their end. When I got home, Isla was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine. How was dinner? I asked. Productive. We're moving forward with the Morrison project. She didn't meet my eyes. How was your evening? Quiet. Watched some television. She nodded, sipping her wine. Wes, I need to ask you something. Why were you near the Aurora Motel tonight? My chest went cold. What? Someone saw a car that looked like yours. I just thought it was strange. I forced a laugh. Honey, I've been home all evening. Maybe it was another gray Honda. There are thousands of them in the city. She studied my face for a long moment, then smiled. Of course. I just wanted to make sure you weren't following me or something crazy like that. The word crazy hung in the air between us like a challenge. Why would I follow you? I asked. No reason. Just being silly. She finished her wine and stood. I'm going to bed. Another early meeting tomorrow. Another early meeting. Another lie. Another entry for my spreadsheet. That night, I started planning. Isla's browser history was wiped clean, but she'd forgotten about device synchronization. Her phone backed up to our shared iPad, which meant every deleted email, every cleared text message, every supposedly private photo lived on in Apple's cloud storage. I spent the weekend reconstructing her digital life while she was at another client consultation in Portland. The emails painted a picture of a relationship that had been building for over a year. Damon called her gorgeous and brilliant. She called him baby, and the only man who truly understands me. The photos were worse. Not explicit, but intimate in ways that cut deeper than physical betrayal. Champagne toasts in hotel rooms, Damon's hand on her thigh during what was supposed to be a business dinner, Isla wearing earrings I'd never seen, gold drops that caught the light as she smiled at the camera. Earrings for pierced ears. Isla's ears weren't pierced. I found the Cartier receipt in her email trash folder. $2,400 for custom earrings, sized for someone else. The engraving read, MV Forever. MV Mira Vossel, Damon's wife. The gifts weren't flowing from Damon to Isla. They were flowing from Isla to Damon, who was giving them to his unsuspecting wife. My wife was funding her lover's marriage. I called my old friend Mason, an ex-cop who now tended bar at O'Malley's downtown. We'd known each other since college, and he was one of the few people who'd give me straight advice without judgment. She thinks she's smarter than me, I told him over a beer that Tuesday night. Mason wiped down a glass and shook his head. Wes, I've seen this before. The cheating spouse who marries a professional, doctor, lawyer, accountant, and thinks their job makes them untouchable. They forget that your job is literally finding things people try to hide. I want payback, I said, but I need to be smart about it. You want my advice? Play dirtier, but stay legal. Use what you know. Make it public. Make it hurt where they care most. Their reputation, their money, their pride. I finished my beer and drove home, Mason's words echoing in my mind. Isla was in her office, door closed, voice low on another work call. I went to my computer and opened a new spreadsheet. This one was different. Dates, expenses, hotel charges, gift receipts, all cross-referenced and annotated. I included the photos, the email screenshots, even GPS data from Isla's phone showing her real locations versus her claimed whereabouts. It was a masterpiece of financial forensics, a complete reconstruction of an affair told through data points and paper trails. I saved it to our shared family computer in a folder labeled Tax Documents 2023. The next morning, I left for work early, knowing Isla would use the computer to print client contracts. She always checked the recent files to make sure I hadn't left anything confidential open. She'd find it, and she'd panic. My phone rang at 10:47 a.m. "What the hell is this?" Her voice was shaking with rage and fear. "What's what?" I asked, injecting just enough confusion to sound genuine. "This spreadsheet. These photos. Are you stalking me? This is abusive, Wes. This is sick." Abusive. The word hit like a slap, but I kept my voice calm. "Isla, I have no idea what you're talking about. What spreadsheet?" "Don't lie to me. I found your sick little surveillance project. You've been following me, taking pictures, tracking my every move like some kind of psychopath." "Honey, you're scaring me. Are you feeling okay? Maybe you should come home and we can talk about this." The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. "I'm not crazy," she said finally. "I know what I saw." "I never said you were crazy, but maybe you're under too much stress. When was the last time you took a real vacation? Not a work trip, but actual time off?" Another silence. Then, "Delete it. Whatever sick game you're playing, delete that file and never mention it again." "Isla, I honestly don't know what file you mean, but if something on our computer is upsetting you, of course I'll help you figure it out." She hung up. That afternoon, I found the spreadsheet in the trash folder, along with a browser history full of searches. Spouse surveillance laws, illegal recording, divorce attorney consultation. She was scared. Good. But I wasn't done digging. Damon's law firm billed Isla's company $47,000 in the past year. I obtained the invoices through a public records request. Isla's firm did government contracts, which made their vendor payments subject to disclosure laws. The billing was creative. Client consultation during hours that matched hotel stays. Document review sessions that lasted exactly as long as room service charges showed champagne being delivered. Strategic planning meetings that occurred in Portland when Isla was supposedly there for design work. Damon was double-dipping. His law firm collected fees for work that never happened, while he used company time and resources to conduct an affair. Wire fraud. Mail fraud. Potentially RICO violations if this was part of a larger pattern. I made copies of everything and scheduled a meeting with Isla's boss, Greta Morrison. Greta ran her interior design firm with the ruthless efficiency of a Fortune 500 CEO. She'd built her reputation on discretion, luxury, and absolute professionalism. Scandal was poison to her business model. "Mr. Farrow," Greta said, gesturing me into her glass-walled office. "This is unexpected. Isla mentioned you might be going through some personal difficulties." Personal difficulties. Isla was already controlling the narrative. "I'm here about billing irregularities," I said, placing a folder on her desk. "Your outside counsel has been charging for services that weren't rendered." Greta's expression sharpened. "That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime." I opened the folder. These are Damon Vossel's invoices to your firm, cross-referenced with hotel records, credit card statements, and GPS data. He's been billing you for hours he spent in hotel rooms with your employee. Greta studied the documents for several minutes, her face growing colder with each page. "This is very thorough," she said finally. "Very professional. You do this kind of analysis for a living?" "Forensic accounting. I specialize in financial fraud investigation." "And you're married to Isla?" "For now." Greta closed the folder. "Mr. Farrow, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I'll handle it from here." "What does that mean for Isla?" "It means she should update her resume." 3 hours later, Isla called me, sobbing. "Greta fired me," she said. "She said there were billing irregularities with Damon's firm. She wouldn't explain, just said my employment was terminated effective immediately." "I'm sorry, honey, that's terrible. What kind of irregularities?" "I don't know. Something about his invoices not matching the work performed. It doesn't make sense." It made perfect sense. Greta had done the math and realized that keeping Isla meant keeping the scandal. Easier to cut the cancer out before it spread. "Maybe you can explain what really happened," I suggested. "If there's been some misunderstanding about the work you and Damon were doing together." The pause was telling. "There's nothing to explain," she said. "Damon is our attorney. We have a professional relationship." "Of course. I'm sure this will all get sorted out." But it wouldn't. Greta Morrison's reputation was built on discretion, and Isla had become a liability. Word would spread through the tight-knit design community within days. Professional relationships mattered in Isla's industry. Without Greta's recommendation, finding equivalent work would be nearly impossible. One down, several to go. Our art collection was worth more than our house. 3 pieces inherited from my grandmother: a small Picasso sketch, a Warhol print, and a landscape by a regional artist whose work had appreciated dramatically after his recent passing. Isla had suggested we get them appraised last year for insurance purposes. The appraiser was recommended by Damon's brother Leo, who ran a gallery in the arts district. Professional courtesy, she'd called it. Now I wondered about that professional courtesy. I contacted the insurance company and requested copies of the appraisal photos. Then I hired an independent art authentication service to examine our pieces. The results came back on a Thursday that felt like Christmas morning. All 3 pieces were forgeries, high-quality forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless. The paper was wrong for the Picasso's supposed date. The Warhol's screen printing showed modern techniques not available in the 1960s. The landscape was painted over a canvas that contained synthetic fibers not invented until the 1990s. Someone had swapped our originals for expertly crafted fakes. I traced the authentication history through auction databases and found our pieces. The Picasso had sold through Leo's gallery 8 months ago for $180,000. The Warhol went for $95,000. The landscape brought $45,000. Total value, $320,000. All sold through Damon's brother, with Isla listed as the consignor. She'd stolen my inheritance, replaced it with forgeries, and pocketed the proceeds. Insurance fraud layered on top of theft and art forgery. I made an appointment to visit Leo's gallery on Saturday afternoon, when I knew he'd be there for the weekly artists' reception. Isla was in Portland again, another client meeting that would undoubtedly involve room 237 and Dom Perignon. The gallery was busy, filled with wine-sipping patrons examining overpriced abstracts and sculptures that looked like industrial accidents. Leo was holding court near a display of photographs, his voice carrying the practiced enthusiasm of someone selling dreams to people with more money than taste. I waited until he was alone, then approached with a smile. "Leo, good to see you again. I'm Wes Farrow, Isla's husband." "Of course. How are you? How's Isla?" "She's great. Actually, I wanted to thank you for handling the sale of our pieces last year. The Picasso especially. I know those can be tricky to authenticate. Leo's smile flickered. Sale? I'm not sure I follow. The 3 pieces you sold for us. My grandmother's collection. Isla said you handled everything through your gallery. I think there might be some confusion. I haven't sold anything for you and Isla. I pulled out my phone and showed him the auction records. According to this, you sold a Picasso sketch last March for $180,000. Isla Corvan is listed as the consignor. Leo's face went pale. He glanced around the gallery, then stepped closer. We should discuss this privately, he said. He led me to his office, a cluttered space behind the main gallery. I noticed he was sweating despite the air conditioning. Look, he said, closing the door. I can explain. I'm listening. Damon brought me those pieces. He said they were part of a divorce settlement that his client needed to liquidate assets quietly. I didn't ask questions. His client? He didn't give me a name, just said it was confidential, that the spouse didn't know about the sale yet. The spouse. Me. So you sold stolen property? I said. I didn't know it was stolen. Damon's my brother. I trusted him. Where's the money? I gave it to Damon, minus my commission. I nodded, recording the conversation on my phone. Leo, I'm going to need you to put all of this in writing. Dates, amounts, everything Damon told you. Are you going to press charges? That depends on how cooperative you are. Leo wrote out a statement while I waited, his handwriting shaky with nerves. When he finished, I took photos of the document and emailed them to myself. One more thing, I said. I'm going to need you to contact your insurance company about those pieces, because if they were stolen, the sales were fraudulent. What does that mean? It means you're going to have to return the money to the buyers and explain why you sold them forgeries of stolen art. Leo's gallery would be finished within a month. His reputation in the art world would be destroyed. Damon's legal career would follow shortly after, once the state bar learned about his role in the fraud. But I wasn't done yet. I spent 2 weeks preparing for the final phase. Every detail had to be perfect, every piece of evidence documented and verified. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. The neighborhood block party was scheduled for the first Saturday in November. Donna Walsh organized it every year, turning our quiet cul-de-sac into a carnival of gossip and competitive grilling. This year, I volunteered to help with the setup. Wes, you're such a sweetheart, Donna gushed as I helped her string lights between the trees. It's so nice to see you getting involved. Isla's lucky to have such a supportive husband. Supportive. Right. I invited some extra guests this year, I told her. Hope that's okay. Of course, the more the merrier. My guest list included Greta Morrison, Mira Vossel, Leo, and several prominent members of the design and legal communities. I'd also contacted a freelance journalist who specialized in white-collar crime stories. Isla was suspicious about my sudden enthusiasm for neighborhood socializing. Since when do you care about block parties? She asked, watching me polish our contribution, a tray of expensive cheeses I'd charged to our joint account. Since I realized how important community is, I said. Besides, I thought it would be nice to celebrate your new business ventures. What new business ventures? The consulting work you've been doing with Damon. All those Portland trips must be paying off. Her face went tight. That's just legal consultation. Nothing worth celebrating. Modest as always, I said. But I think people should know about your success. The party started at 4 o'clock. By 5, the street was filled with neighbors, their children, and my carefully selected guests. I'd set up a projector and screen, ostensibly for showing a slideshow of neighborhood photos from the past year. Damon arrived at 5:30 with Mira, both of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Isla had been avoiding him all afternoon, staying on the opposite side of the party whenever he appeared. Greta Morrison made a fashionably late entrance at 6, her presence causing a stir among the design-conscious neighbors. I'd told her this was a networking opportunity, a chance to meet potential clients in their natural habitat. At 6:30, I tapped a fork against my beer bottle and called for attention. "If I could have everyone's attention," I announced, "I'd like to say a few words about trust, community, and the importance of knowing your neighbors." The crowd gathered around, wine glasses in hand, expecting the usual suburban platitudes about property values and shared responsibility. "This year has been educational," I continued. "I've learned a lot about the people closest to me, about their values, their priorities, and their commitment to honesty." Isla was staring at me from across the crowd, her face pale with growing alarm. "I've also learned about the importance of documentation, of keeping records, of following paper trails wherever they might lead." I clicked the remote, and the projector screen filled with the first image, a hotel receipt from the Aurora Motel, dated 3 months ago, showing charges for room 237. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Donna's mouth fell open. Greta Morrison's eyebrows rose with interest. "This is what trust looks like when you're married to someone who thinks they're smarter than you," I said, clicking to the next slide. Hotel stays, gift purchases, corporate billing for services that were never rendered. The next image showed Damon's law firm invoice, itemized by date and amount, cross-referenced with hotel records. "Wire fraud," I announced cheerfully. "Mail fraud, theft of services, all documented with the precision you'd expect from a forensic accountant." Damon started pushing through the crowd toward me, his face red with rage. "You can't do this. This is harassment." "Actually, it's evidence," I said, clicking to the next slide, photos of him and Isla embracing in the motel parking lot. "Evidence of adultery, fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft." Mira Vossel stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Damon, is this true?" "Mira, I can explain. Can you explain this?" I clicked again. The screen showed bank records of the art sales, with Damon's name on the deposit slips. $320,000 in stolen property sold through his brother's gallery. The crowd was buzzing now, phones coming out to record the spectacle. Greta Morrison was taking notes. The journalist was filming everything. Isla finally found her voice. "Stop this! You're humiliating yourself." "I'm not the one who should be humiliated," I said. "I'm not the one who stole from my spouse, defrauded my employer, and conducted an affair on company time." Damon lunged toward me, but Mason appeared from the crowd and blocked his path. My old friend had been waiting for exactly this moment. "I wouldn't," Mason said quietly. "Not with this many witnesses." "You planned this," Isla said, her voice breaking. "You orchestrated this whole thing." "I documented it," I corrected. "You orchestrated it. I just followed the paper trail." Mira Vossel stepped up to the microphone I was still holding. "May I?" I handed it over, curious about what Damon's wife had to say. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mira said, her voice steady and clear, "I want you to know that I've been working with Wes for the past month. I've been gathering evidence of my husband's affairs, yes, plural, and his financial crimes." The crowd went silent. "Damon has been stealing from clients, conducting multiple affairs, and using our joint assets to fund his lifestyle. I've filed for divorce and turned over everything to the FBI." She looked directly at Damon, who was standing frozen in the middle of the crowd. "You thought you were the predator," she said. "Turns out, you were always the mark." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Damon's law license was suspended pending investigation. Leo's gallery closed within 2 weeks when his insurance company refused to cover the fraudulent sales. Isla faced charges for conspiracy, fraud, and theft, charges that would likely result in prison time given the dollar amounts involved. The story made the local news, then went viral on social media thanks to the party footage. "Cheating wife destroyed at block party" accumulated 3 million views in the first week. Isla tried to return home after the party, but I'd changed the locks and filed for emergency separation. Her belongings were packed and waiting on the front porch, along with divorce papers that detailed exactly how the assets would be divided. She got nothing. The prenuptial agreement she'd insisted on to protect her business assets became her downfall when those same assets were revealed to be proceeds from criminal activity. 2 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse watching Damon plead guilty to wire fraud, mail fraud, and conspiracy. He received 5 years in federal prison. Isla's sentencing was scheduled for the following month, but her attorney had already indicated she would accept a plea deal for 2 to 4 years. Mira approached me in the courthouse hallway after Damon's hearing. "I never thanked you properly," she said. "You don't need to thank me. You did most of the work." "I did the legal work. You did the detective work. Without your evidence, I never could have built the case." We walked outside together, into the crisp December air. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Start over, travel, maybe write a book about financial fraud in marriage." She smiled. "What about you?" I thought about that question for a long moment. My marriage was over. My wife was going to prison. My art collection was gone, though insurance would eventually cover the loss. But I had something I hadn't had in years: clarity. "I'm going to do what I do best," I said. "Follow the paper trail. There are a lot of people out there who think they're smarter than the numbers." "The numbers don't lie," Mira said. "No," I agreed. "They never do." 18 months later, Isla was serving her sentence at a minimum security facility outside the city. Damon was in federal prison, his legal career permanently destroyed. Leo had moved to another state and was working as a house painter. I kept the final spreadsheet archived on an encrypted drive, along with all the evidence and documentation. Not because I needed it anymore, but because it reminded me of an important truth. Everyone leaves a paper trail. The forensic accountant always keeps receipts. My phone buzzed with a text from a potential new client, a woman who suspected her business partner was embezzling funds. She'd heard about my work through word of mouth, the kind of reputation that comes from being thorough, professional, and absolutely relentless in pursuit of the truth. I opened a new spreadsheet and began typing. Project name: Corporate Fraud Investigation. The numbers would tell the story. They always did.